So, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, and welcome to this instance of the Antrea community meeting. Today is Tuesday, March the 12th, and we have two topics on the agenda for today. We will start with a discussion about running multiple jobs on the same kind test bed, and that will be driven by Purkit. And after that, we have a follow-up from last meeting discussion about BGP APIs, and Hong Liang will discuss two alternatives for API design together with us so that we can decide which one we want to use and move forward. So I believe that we can get started. And Pulkit, are you ready?
Yes, Salvatore.
So go ahead. Thanks.
Yeah. I hope my screen is visible.
Yes, it is.
Okay. So, good morning, everyone. Today we are going to talk about the task that is running multiple CI jobs on same kind environment. The topics that we'll be discussing today are first I'll be telling you about the task, that what the task is, then the requirement, and then we will move forward with the implementation. So the task basically is about facilitating running of multiple kind jobs on the same test bed at the same time. Uh, there are multiple CI jobs. We have multiple VMs, and each jobs runs on a particular VM. So now what this task aims at is running multiple jobs on a similar VM instead of running each job on a particular VM, and that too at the same time. The requirement that we had for this task was like we can reduce the average queue time for a job, since we have a limited number of VMs and we have many PRs that are triggering a particular job. So if a VM is not available, then the job has to wait in queue for the VM to be available, and then it can be scheduled on that VM. So this was one of the requirement. Then moving forward, for having like to support this runs of the job, we need to have multiple VMs also. So that increases the number of resources that we require for our CI. So here with this task, we aim to reduce the number of VMs that we require, because we'll be running multiple jobs on a similar VM. Then it also improves the overall time taken to complete the CI. Because if we will schedule the job simultaneously, then the overall time that our CI takes to complete for a particular PR, that will also be reduced. So these were the three main reasons why why we have created this task and why we are doing this. Then moving forward with the implementation, that how we can achieve this thing. So the two main things that can be a hurdle while running multiple jobs on a similar kind environment is the build tags for the image. That currently we are using the images with the latest tag by default. Whenever we are triggering the build script, then the images that are created, they have a tag latest. So if we will have multiple jobs running on the same kind environment, then they will be sharing the same Docker desktop. So if like all of them will create image with the latest tag, then there can be a clash, like which image is being used by which job, and the jobs like the images can be, we can say there can be fault or failure of the jobs, because all the images will be of same tag. So we have introduced custom build tag concept for the images that will be built during the test. So for each test, the images that would be built, they will have their custom build tag, and that build tag will be associated with the build number of that particular job, and the YAML that will be applied for that job. So in that also we'll be replacing the image that has been using the latest tag with the new image with the custom build tag. So this is one of the this was one of the problem, and this is how we tried to overcome it. And then the other thing was that if there are multiple kind clusters, then the cube config of all the clusters should be exported accordingly. So for that also, like for we like since every job will be having its own CLI when it will be running through Jenkins, so we'll be exporting cube config there itself. So this is how we can tackle, like we can use the custom cube config for all the clusters. And then for each job, like currently what is done is like the workspace which is created by Jenkins, so that has the name of the job as the name of that work directory that is there. So we can have we can use the feature of Jenkins of custom workspace, so that even if the same job is running like the same instance of job is running multiple times in a particular VM, then we can have the workspace created with different name or different work directories created there. So suppose what I mean by this point is, suppose there is a job named as Antrea E2E for test, and there are three PRs who want to run that same job. So Jenkins usually what we see is that directory is created inside varlib Jenkins workspace folder with the name of the job, that is Antrea E2E test. So if we will have multiple PRs and all will be using the same workspace directory, then the code would be overwritten and the job won't be successful, or we can say that our purpose won't be sufficed. So for that, we can use the custom workspace part of the Jenkins. So it is a feature of Jenkins itself, and we can use that to run the same job for different PRs on a same kind environment. So these were the three problems that we had, and this is how we tried to overcome it. And we have tested it also, like we have triggered parallel builds for building the image using the different using the custom build tag, and the images were built successfully with the different tag. And then we applied YAMLs, applied it to like we applied the Antrea YAML, and it was done successfully. So this is what the task is in brief, and this is how I have implemented it. So anyone has any questions or anything that they want to discuss?
No question from me. Is there anybody else on the call that would like, that has any curiosity about this? Waiting 10 seconds.
When the GitHub issue was open for this, we discussed looking into running a kind inside Docker as an alternative to provide better isolation across jobs. Is that something you're also looking into now?
Oh yeah, so currently like I have implemented with this approach, and then I'll be looking into that also, like running kind inside Docker for the isolation purpose.
Antonio, we have a separate task for that. So once this is done, then we'll take a look at that approach.
But are those two things compatible? Because I thought there were like two different ways of achieving similar goals.
I mean, that is more of exploring that running CI job in a kind. For that, we have to explore a couple of plugins also. So currently, there are more investigation required in that area. So this is like almost we are done with it. So we'll go ahead with it because it brings us advantage or reduce number of VMs required to run the CI job. But that is the next step.
I feel, as Anthony mentioned, these two directions are not incremental improvements. They are kind of exclusive. If you adopt one, there's no point to adopt the other one, right? Because you own. If one works well, no reason to still try the other one.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, in fact, the other one needs more investigation because we have to explore the plugins. Also, we have to check other architectures like Pro, and so it needs more deep dive kind of discussion. So and this was almost ready. So I think we'll see that like if this can be useful for some time, and if it is not, then we'll go for the next one.
Yeah, I think that solution may it is also possible that that solution is already mature. We just haven't looked at it yet. But as a long term goal, I feel that direction might be more suitable for or easier to manage, because you can easily to extend the capacity. The CI can run multiple jobs by just extending the Kubernetes cluster. Yeah. But I also haven't looked at it much, so it's hard for me to say which one is better. I just felt that, as I mentioned in the issue, I thought there may be much effort needs to be investigated to make current jobs work on a single VM. But if you think it's not really complicated, I also think it's good to have the ability to run it, to have this ability, even for local development. I think it might be helpful.
Yeah, and other one, like it will need more time, like more design also, like design discussion also required for that, and we know that like Kate uses it, so we would like to investigate first and then run some trials and see that like what are designs are there. Like there are multiple designs there in that one also. Like so, yeah. So if this works fine, then we'll see that like if we can really need to work on that and invest time on that. But if you guys agree, like we need to go ahead with that direction, so we will spend time on that. We'll start investigation and do some design discussions on that.
Currently, it would be hard for me to say which one is better without any materials about that direction.
Yeah, I mean that I also agree. That is why like we wanted to see this approach first, because this was like almost like it is not that complicated, which we thought like earlier. So this looks to be.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we could first look at this one, if you have prepared it well.
Sure.
All right. Do we have more question for Purkita, or should we move to the next topic? Let's wait maybe a few 10 more seconds to see if we have more questions on this topic. All right, that might be all then. So thanks a lot, Pulkit, for this presentation. And
Thank you.
now we move probably to the topic where we have to make a decision. Apparently, Hong Liang is going to propose two API alternatives for BGP, and let's see what are the differences between these two proposals. Please, Hong Liang, go ahead.
Okay, thanks, Salvador. I'll zoom my screen. All right. Could you see my screen right now? The Google Doc?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. After the last community meeting, I made another two draft design. One, and the first one, I think I can mark it too deprecated. So we started with the draft two design. Like the first one, we still use the node selector to select the target BGP nodes. And in this design we use BGP configurations to run different process of BGP. And in the different biggest difference is here in this design. We use different BGP configurations, but for draft 3, we only use one configuration, and but here we add another CRD dedicated with the BGP. It's called BGP filter. I didn't put it here because in fact I don't have overall view about it, so I left to do here. For this design, I think we leave the possibility to extend the BGP filter. We can in the future. I think we can like here. The prerequisite is that they have in this design and this design they both have the BGP peers in these peers. For the design for the draft 2 in the future we can add the BGP filter here if it's really needed. But for draft 3, we can only maybe we can no longer make any change to this since we will only support a single BGP process here. But they both have advantages and disadvantages. For this one, I think maybe it has better brain to advertise service IPs or but for this but for draft 3 if we want to advertise different service IPs or others, we need to know the specific IPs or address to block it to appear and allow it to appear. That's like the real BGP router. That's like configuring a real BGP router. For draft 2, I think maybe it's a small Kubernetes oriented. We just use selector to do everything. We use selector to select service IPs or something else. But maybe we need more resources since we might run multiple BGP process. Okay. Do you have any questions?
Hongliang, can you show examples of this 2 new
sure.
proposal?
Sure. This is do you mean the YAML file or?
Yeah, how it will be used and.
Sure. Here, this is the YAML file of draft 2, and Anthony gave some suggestions about the source selector. This is another example modified according to Anthony's suggestion. You can solve. Yeah, this is the first example, and this is example of draft 2.
Can you show the example for proposals 3?
Sure.
What was yeah.
Here.
So the difference is mainly in filters.
Yeah.
Or something else.
Yeah. In this proposal, we need to introduce another CRD called BGP builder. And this filter is applied to a BGP peer and to block or allow some IPs. This is more likely to configure traditional routers. We need to know the specific IPs or the setters.
What capacity the filters provide? Capacity. Yeah. Why we need these filters in the third proposal?
If you don't want to advertise some setters to a remote BGP peer, we need a filter.
Oh, you mean the parent the cluster IPs, port IPs, egress IP in its parent in its parent field, it's the global configuration, and when you have different configuration for different peers, you then specify a filter to restrict what IPs will be. So it is used to customize advertisement IPs for different peers, right?
Yes.
And for the second proposal, we don't have that. Oh, do we have that capacity? Different advertisement for different peers.
Sure. In this proposal, we have BGP configurations to have list of BGP configuration. Then we can use the selector to advertise the service IPs or other IPs to the expected BGP peers in different BGP configurations.
I see. So in the second proposal, it's a flatten. It's more a flattened struct, and the third one is local overriding global configuration.
Yeah.
Is it like that? Okay.
Also, I think that. Oh, good.
Go ahead.
Just a quick question slash comment. I think that with the third proposal, the BGP filter approach, it's possible to exclude individual IPs, right, Tonglen?
Yeah, we can use it to exclude some specific IPs or setters. I think I found that Calico use this. Calico have similar way to exclude or allow some IPs. But I think it's more complex than Calico. Not that simple. I found that they have some accent like allow or block or something else. But they just the exact is that they use the filters they apply the filters in the specific BGP peers to achieve the IP set they expected. Sorry.
But do we know a use case of that? Why we would need to exclude IPs by filters instead of the selector or the boolean, if we want so?
In fact, I didn't get exactly case about that.
Or the question could be, if one day we want to exclude some resources to be advertised, can we extend the selector in advertisements to achieve it? do we have that capacity by the second proposal?
If so, I think we need we can achieve it by adding a new selector to the service or something else to the services, and we need to match the selector in the BGP advertisement. Then we can exclude the service without the selector. Maybe it's not this is not so easy to achieve.
I don't quite get it. Is it doable or not with the second approach?
Do you mean that for proposal 2, we want to exclude some IPs from the existing IP set?
I think all the IP advertisements are from this resource, right? Either it is one of IPs of these resources, external IPs, egress IPs, port IPs, right?
Yeah.
So essentially, it could be described while a selector, right?
Yeah.
So I guess the answer is yes. I mean, the ability to exclude or only advertise a few IPs can also be achieved by using selector in the advertisement field, while the advertisement field, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, we can achieve this by but I think we can only achieve that by to service IPs. For egress IPs or port IPs, I don't think we can have some way to exclude a specific one.
No, I think
Why?
this is like traditional BGP policy, export import policy. In the traditional BGP stack, we have this export import policy, which is now getting called in Kubernetes world as the filter. So basically, filter is like you can specify particular set of IPs, and that will be filtered. So let's say the service IP you're trying to export, right? So you can put a filter on top of that as well. So it's like more granular inside that, even inside the selector, service selector or other selector. So that is how I see. But I think Hongyang, we are only using the export selector, export filter, right? We are not using import. So we are only advertising the route, right? We are not adding the routes into the local, right? I think basically when you are basically when you are forming the neighborhood, right, neighborship relationship, so then you advertise the route as well as you receive the route from the peer, right? So in that case, you can put import filter. I mean, the filter, there are two types of filter. There's one is export filter, one is import filter. So basically, both direction filter works. So the filter is for that also, like to put a filter when you are receiving the routes and discard routes which you don't want to add into your local host. So yeah, it works in both ways.
Sorry, could you sum up the questions?
Yeah. So
summarize.
Yeah.
Could you summarize the question?
So BGP filters you are using, right? So filters currently you are using only one way, like to whatever you are advertising, you are filtering those routes, right? So when so that can also be used to the filter which routes which are coming in from your peer. So in this case,
I got that. But we don't install the route we learned from the peer, since we don't have that requirement currently.
okay, so you mean to say
we only need to advertise the IP address like service IPs, and for the external for the routes we learned from the remote peers, we don't need to install routes folder because that's another complex design in the future if it is really needed.
Yeah, usually it is like both way, right? Like you advertise and you receive routes, and those routes can also be filtered. So this filter can be used for both direction to receive the routes which you want. So you can filter those routes as well.
Yeah,
So
of course if we have a BGP router, we can also that to receive the routes we expected or something else.
yeah, another question I have is like regarding using multiple local ASN, right? So
Yeah.
like are we going ahead with that using multiple local ASN or?
I think we'd better to have the ability to run multiple BGP configurations. If we have only one, and I think it's not easy to extend to run multiple BGP process since
Yeah, correct. So for that, like you have to run multiple BGP instances, right?
although I
No, Hong
didn't
Liang,
get.
I also want actually I want to understand that too. Do we really have use case you need multiple different BGP configurations for different types of IPs? For example, in Calico and the other solution, do you see people doing that?
For Calico, I didn't say that, but I saw Selim has the ability to run multiple BGP process. They call it water router.
For different types of IPs, I think.
I think like Calico, they can advertise. They don't have the ability to advertise different service IPs, but they have the ability to advertise the IP pool. For service IP, they just have global. They just have a flag in its BGP configurations. If I remember correctly.
I still feel probably the most common case, you only have a single router to advertise all the routes, right? No matter is service IP or egress IP or port IP.
Yeah,
I think in most
you are
typical
right.
case, you just have one router. That's my understanding.
Yeah, you are right. But I think it's not harmful to have the ability to run multiple BGP configurations.
But even we want to support that, you can still create multiple BGP policies, right?
If so, but we can't create multiple BGP with the same AS number in a single node. They must have different. AS number.
I'm a little confused. I think even in your current design, different BGP configuration have different ASN number, right?
Yeah. Yes. They must have different AS number. I have tried. Sorry.
My question is like, could we achieve the same by creating multiple BGP policies? Even one policy can only support one BGP configuration. Trying to support multiple BGP policies.
Let me see.
I mean, this BGP policy is CRD.
Yeah.
Do you support multiple instances in the cluster? I think yes.
Do you mean the draft 2?
No matter which approach, no matter approach 2 or 3. do you support multiple BGP policy CLRs?
Well, we can support BGP, multiple BGP CLRs, but like egress, only one is active, others are standby.
Only I think for egress, it's because in practice, only one egress IP can be effective for a policy. But if for BGP policy, it is possible that one node can talk to different peers with different advertisements and with different local ASN. I think there is no problem to that. You could you could change your validation strategy to allow for different ASNs, to allow for multiple BGP policies applied to the same node with different local ASN, right? It's just a validation strategy. Right?
I got that. But of course, we can apply different BGP CRDs to a single node, but they need to have different local S numbers. Since I have tried with Go BGP, multiple Go BGP process can't be run with the same S number. They must have different S number to start different BGP process.
And Hongliang, my question is that, do you plan to support that or not? Or you plan to support only a single BGP policy CL?
For this one, I'm going to support with different in this. We can define different local S numbers in a list of BGP configurations.
Okay. But do you still plan to support multiple policies or not? Could you answer that?
Sure. We can support multi-policy, but for multiple policy, I just plan like I just support. I just want to just want one BGP policy to be active, others are standby.
Okay, if we go approach 2.
Yeah. Because maybe for drop 2, we have a list of configurations. If we still support applying multiple such CRD to a single node, maybe there is an overlap between local S numbers. It's difficult to compare them. I think I just let them within like egress. They just as alternatives. But I think the drop 3 can be used like the way you said. We can. I was thinking to set the local ASIN as a hard-coded values. If we want to apply multiple BGP policies for drop 3, we can let the user to define the local ASIN.
Yeah, I'm thinking, is that a simpler way for user to consume this? I mean, in a typical case, they just have a single router and they can just create one BGP policy with a single configuration in most cases. And in a case, they really have multiple routers with they need different BGP configurations. You can create multiple policies. And we just need to make sure, maybe we can do some webhook to check the local ASN are different for different policies. Is that easier for user to consume and make sure no misconfiguration? If you go your approach 2, I heard you said you can choose one to be active, one to be stand, and other to be standby. But you can just randomly choose, right? Because you
sorry?
don't. I mean, in your approach 2, when you have multiple policies,
Yeah.
I believe you can just randomly choose which one is active, which one is standby.
I'm planning to. I was thinking for draft 1, if we apply the multiple BP policies, the first one will be active and the others applied to the single node will be standby. But also I was thinking about it can be applied. It was the draft 3 has the same logic. Only one will be active and others are standby if a single node have multiple BP policy. But maybe we can extend the draft 3. In my original thinking, I just set the local SN to a hard-coded value, but we can give it to user.
That is a simple change.
Yeah.
Again, I didn't think through. You must have thought about more cases on this, but in my kind of feeling, I feel option 3 probably is simpler. Yeah, and since we are doing a phased development plan, right? I would suggest for the first phase, we just make it very simple. We only support one policy, and all the types of IPs will just share one BGP configuration, and we don't need to do filter or whatever.
Okay. Do you mean that we just don't implement filters in phase 1, and we can implement it in the future if it really needed?
Yeah, that's my feeling.
Okay.
And again, even for the service selectors, I think we talked about that before. I was thinking maybe in phase 1, we don't do any selectors for service or external IPs, but we just advertise all the IPs in that tab if the tab is specified in the BGP policy.
Is this just the first proposal, just the one? I think
more simple.
I think the point of the third proposal is the filters, which I actually think is less straightforward than using selectors only, because by using a filter, first you have a global wider selection of advertisement, then you reduce the scope for each node by having another filter. So I feel it is probably less straightforward, and the more straightforward selector is just having one, and it's just in the policy itself, like the one in the first or the second proposal. My understanding is the essential difference between the first and the second one is the ability to advertise different IPs to different peers on a single node. Then if we just assume that that use case is not common, even if we want to support it, we could just change the validation strategy from not allowing more than one BGP policy being applied to one node to we could apply different BGP policies with different local ASM to one node, right? So it's essentially the first proposal. It's more flat. Everything is in the same layer local ASN advertisement and appeals. It's just that it could only have one local ASN, and even if we want to support multiple BGP process in the future, we just change the validation strategy to tolerate more than one BGP policies to be applied to a single node, right?
Okay, about that. You mean that we can, for the first phase, we can only allow one BGP process or instance, but in the future, if it is required, we can change the validation for the local SN to allow the different BGP policies. But for the filters, in fact, I don't come up with an inspiration design about filters. Maybe.
Sorry, I made a mistake to stop the recording.
Maybe we can just use the how about the draft 3, but we don't implement it BGP filters. BGP filters, since it's maybe it's more complicated than we think. And
I think single local ASN with multiple BGP support, and then if you can add filter for the phase 1, I think it should be okay. Rather than supporting multiple local ASN and then running multiple BGP processes. So probably that design should be open for that, but initially we can go ahead with the one local ASN initially.
okay.
What's the decision for selectors? Because I do agree that BGP filters add extra complexity, but it seems that there was like a request to from a user to add support for selectors.
I prefer these selectors you commented last in this document.
Okay, so we have a user request to support selector service.
The user was
yes.
also talking about pods, I think, right? Which was a bit more surprising to me, but the ability to at least select pods at the namespace level, I think, to advertise some pod IPs in some namespaces, but not in other namespaces.
Okay, I see.
Because kind of like what Chan was describing for the simplifying the multiple BGP configuration case while kind of like having the ability to enable it easily in the future by relaxing validation. I think for IP selection, if we start with Booleans, I don't know how easy it is to switch to selectors in the future. I guess it's not that difficult. We can just add new fields and then and keep the Booleans for a while and potentially remove them later. So not a strong preference, but it seems that there were some user requests at least for service selectors and pod selectors.
Yeah, we got a request. We got a such request from GitHub. But they didn't give exactly case. But in my opinion, maybe we can add some selectors to service IPs, but for egress or pod IPs, I don't think we need more fine. I don't see such a green like a selector on namespace. I don't see. I didn't find any implementations like Selenium or Calico to export pod IPs with selector. Maybe For
And for the Antonian side, even for port IP, there's a user request to support the selectors.
yeah, I saw that, and they left the comment on the GitHub issue.
Yeah, in general, I think we can design for selectors. But again, in your implementation, I still suggest to start from no selectors. I mean, just do a phased approach, right? Once you have the first version out, then we can definitely add in selectors. But in the API design, just make sure we can easily add selectors without breaking the API compatibility.
Sure. We can sort of add the extension to add selectors like port IPs or egress IPs, and we can add some validations about that. For example, currently we use the Boolean type. In the future, maybe we add some selectors, and then they are exclude. They are not. They can't exist. They can't use them together, or like this to validate the API from the request from user. So, do you think we need preserve the fine grained selector for service in the first version, or we just use some global selector like to support just external IPs or class IPs?
Okay, I think for your implementation, I suggest you start from no selectors. So let's make sure the API can be extended later to support selectors.
I think maybe it's easy to extend the selectors, but I'm not sure how to explain it to users easily. Currently, they use the selector. They use the Boolean, and how to persuade them to use the selector later. Maybe that's an issue. That's a question.
You could just keep the behavior compatible with previous API, right? When selector is not set, it could just mean, and Boolean is true. It just means advertise all IPs. And when a selector is provided, it means it will only advertise specific IPs, right? For users who doesn't set the selector, the behavior is the same, right?
Oh, got it. Thanks. Okay. Any questions about the selectors and or something else about the APIs?
Just to confirm that whether we reach a consensus that there will be no BGP configuration field. The advertisement, the local ASN will be under the faster level struct, right?
Yeah, like this.
Okay, I see.
Okay.
It makes sense to me, yeah.
Oh, thanks. For next one, maybe we have little time to discuss about the data path. I think we can still use GoBGP because currently we don't have much nodes to use in a cluster since generally cluster. Maybe we just need to establish a BGP peer to remote nodes, and the 10,000 scale is enough for our implementation. And although the data is a little old, it's about 3 years ago for BGP benchmark. But the biggest advertisement is that we don't need to introduce another packet in our image. We can just use the Go library to integrate it in our binary file. But like we discussed in the mail, we can define the BGP functionality interface. Then we can extend it. We can add a different implementation about BGP data path, like FRR offer or something else, if it's really needed. If we need it in the future. Okay. Any comments about this?
Yeah, I think
think,
I think the library is fine. I just, as I pointed out by email, I think it would be great if we kept like the interface clean so that it's kind of like agnostic to the implementation if we want to, for any reason, modify it in the future. Yeah, I mean, I see that paragraph. Okay, so sounds good. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I don't think I have more to discuss.
All right, thanks, Song Liang. That was a very good discussion, and hopefully we have consensus on how to move forward on the implementation of BGP support. And we have just 1 minute before the end of our scheduled time. Is there any final question? All right, it looks like it might be all for today. So thanks everyone for attending, and most importantly, thanks a lot for Kit and Hong Liang for leading today's presentations. And I would like to wish a good night for our friends in Palo Alto, and for everybody else, I wish you a great day or a great afternoon, and talk to you in 2 weeks' time.
Thank you all.
Bye bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye.